Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the SITREP, or the summary for the day of 611 to 615 for the 27th to 31st of October. Again, so many days has passed since the SITREP, and yeah, a lot of unfortunate coincidence that caused the delay. So yeah, and okay, so I will be focusing more on the Ukraine war from now onwards because the Israeli-Hamas war coverage views are a bit too low, so it's no longer logical for me to spend more time on that. So I'm going to spend more time on what you are more interested in, which is the Ukraine war. So moving on, just a few things before we go into the front line. There was a missile strike on the 28th on the Kanatovo air base. Apparently the air traffic control was destroyed. So yeah, that is something a bit unusual. I haven't really seen a report from the Russian MOD talking about taking out a traffic control tower. So I wonder if there's a change in that sense. Again, continuing the previous trends, there is a lot of aircraft from the Ukrainian side getting shot down. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry did not mention shooting down of any Russian airplanes. So just to tell you, that in terms of the balancing, it's not that I don't report on any the Ukrainian success, but the Ukrainian MOD themselves has not mentioned about shooting down on any Russian aircraft, and I would say this is very concerning. If you are actually pro-Ukraine, this unbalance is not good. So there is a MiG-29 shot down over Privetne, again air defense, and another MiG-29 shot down over Ternivka. And furthermore, around Kherson region, there's a Sukhoi 25 shot down over Derivka, again air defense, and there is a Mi-8 transport helicopter that was shot down over Velyka. So these are in the Kherson Front. These other two is actually around the Dnipro region. That is actually probably firing long-range missile or whatnot. And again, the rumor about the shooting down seems to be related to the use of AWACS aircraft. So Russia have very limited radar planes. So it looks like there is some kind of new programming or technology or application or something that helps to connect the radar plane with the S-400s. So this is the latest rumor. Of course, nobody knows this for a fact because the Russia MOD actually did not talk about this. All this, ultimately, whatever you read, these are speculations, and it does seems to make sense because S-400, despite having super long range and super powerful missiles, is limited by its radar. The radar does not actually stretch that far, despite the missile can actually fire a very long range. So having a secondary radar from a radar plane which can actually see further, allowing the S-400 system to reach its maximum operational distance does makes a lot of sense. And ultimately, even at Ternivka, this is nowhere close to 400 kilometers. This is merely 100 to 120 kilometers away from the front line, pretty much even in range for the S-300s. So it may be S-400 shooting, it may be S-300 shooting, I'm not sure. So we move on to the southern fronts first. The Israeli now I report so much Israeli war, now I say Israeli. So the Ukrainian forces still have the beachhead around in the southern side of Kherson, mainly around in Krinky, and in the area south of Dnipropetrovsk, near Prishevnivka, as well as in the Dachi region. So over at the Dachi region, what we do have is simply some geolocation of TOS-1A strike. There is a flamethrower strike by the Russians on Dachi. So the the Ukrainians are still there, but they have not been doing much around the Dachi region after the previous push all the way to the edge of Leshki. According to the latest information, they are entrenched north of the Konka River. They seems to previously, what I did read was they crossed over, and it seems like based on the latest information, it seems to be that they are in the north. Over at the Dnipropetrovsk sector or region, there is geolocation of Ukrainian forces getting drone strikes and also getting under fire near to this south of Dnipropetrovsk, and there is information that they are trying to attack Pishanivka again, according to pro-Russian sources. And so on 28 and 29, they did try to push and move towards Pishanivka, but it did not work out. So I'm not sure what the Ukrainians going to do. They are continuing to send reinforcement to try to make this push, but it doesn't seem to work out just yet. I think lacking of heavy vehicles might be the main issue. The situation at Krinky continues to be a stalemate at this moment. The Ukrainian forces continue to hold some houses within Krinky, and there is news of reinforcement, according to pro-Russian sources, being transferred over to Krinky. Russian forces continue to pretty much encircle them and try to shell them out of existence, but so far it have not worked out for the Russians. So pretty much a stalemate over here, over in the Kherson Front. We move on into the Zaporizhzhia Front. Over at this is the Zaporizhzhia line, and at the Zaporizhzhia Front at the Orikhiv sector. So this is Orikhiv. At the Orikhiv sector, the Ukrainian forces continue their offensive. It's getting more and more ill-fated as we go, because the front line hardly changes. There is like this level of changes in the front line in the eastern part of Robotine, and that's about it. There is continuous fighting towards the west of Robotine and in just off northwest of Verbove. And then there is also Russian counterattacks in this region here. So the east to and fro fighting, and there is a lot of geolocations. As you can see, geolocation on the 28th, but this is on the 29th, this is on the 30th. So you can see that this becomes a front line where the Russians actually did push in, and on one of the days, whereas the Ukrainians push back. So this geolocation actually shows how volatile the front line is over in the western part of Robotine, but it also shows how fierce the defending the Russians are doing over here. The defensive posture seems to be really deliberate. They really don't like to retreat over from this region here, and they are really pushing back on the Ukrainians, which is pretty, I would say, a little bit unusual as compared to a few months ago, where the Russians do redraw to better defensive position. But it seems like the Russians have done with redrawing, and they are actually pushing back, with counteroffensive actions being reported on the 29th to the 31st of October, according to the Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry, whereas the Ukrainians are fighting all the way. They are the main side that is actually doing the operation. They are doing the offensive all the way from the 27th to the 31st. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces near Kopani, in the north of Kopani, not very important geolocation over there. There is also geolocation of Ukrainian forces on the tree line south of Robotine. So which means the battle pretty much is only in this area here, in the western part of Robotine. Over at the Verbove region, this site is a bit more mysterious. There is fighting. The Ukrainians are attacking. They are attacking on the 27th, 28th, and 30th, according to Ryba, the pro-Russian source, and the Russian Defense Ministry. Whereas the Russians counterattack on the 27th and on the 28th. This is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. What is, however, important to note is that in all this offensive, Leopard tanks are being used. The Leopard 2s are being used. So I would have expected the Ukrainians to be conserving these Leopard tanks in defensive roles until more reinforcement like the Abram tanks, the Leopard 1s, to come into the front line. Because you need heavy armor to actually protect to help to defend and provide fire support, and to deal with other enemy armored vehicles. But the thing is, they are starting to use them, which I would think is reserve tanks to go on the offensive. This doesn't look very good. It looks like the Ukrainians are just going for it and try to do whatever they could in the desperate attempt to try to do something. Like it doesn't feel like there's a strategic purpose to this anymore. And there's also a sense that the Abrams tanks might not be coming. For me, I mean, I there's just no talk about it. There's no talk about the Leopard ones. It just feels like the entire attention that was being all pulled over into the Middle East, into the Palestine, Israeli issues, has pretty much put a dampener on the support for Ukraine. And I got a feeling that this could be Ukraine trying to do whatever they could to get back attention or something. I'm not sure, but I just thought it's not a good idea to be using the Leopard tanks. I thought that it would be a better idea to actually, go back to their their successful tactics of infantry movements. They're using infantry to capture positions, but maybe that no longer work, which is why they are trying to use the Leopard tanks, and they are getting destroyed. So there is already footages, of Leopard tanks getting destroyed by FPV suicide drones, and Ryba also reported about 3 Leopard tanks being destroyed. And I believe this 3 is actually verified based on footages. So this is actually quite bad. And while I'm on the issue of Leopard tanks, Leopard 2s are also spotted in the Kupyansk Front, which we'll cover all the way at the very end of this video as we move anti-clockwise in the front lines. And which is pretty unusual in my opinion. So we move on over into the Velyka Novosilka sector. This is the Velyka Novosilka sector. In this sector, there is fighting. It seems to be mainly the Russians are the one attacking much more. Ukraine only attacked on the 29th at Staromayorsky and Uruzhaine in the counter attack. But pretty much the fighting over here is pretty much dictated by the Russians. The Russians attacked on the 27th, 28th, and the 30th on Uruzhaine, and over on the same days, but also plus 31st at Staromayorsky. And over at the Prione region, there is fighting reported on the 30th in the north, and then on 29th to 30th in the northeast. So the Russians are making the main offensive, doing most of the offensive operations. I think in the Prione region, they are pushing, doing assault. In this Staromayorsky Uruzhaine region, the operation is more towards fire missions. They're basically just doing destruction. They are just destroying the Israeli troops. No, the Ukrainian troops. Oh my freaking god! The Ukrainian troops over in these 2 towns. So they are not pushing to capture ground just yet. But this is the Russians actually on the offensive. There is some certain geolocation as shown at Uruzhaine. The Russians are throwing fat bombs, basically the high explosive bombs dropped by airplanes onto the targets within Uruzhaine itself. And also Russians are located just off Starolimnivka. So with this geolocation of Ukrainian forces over here getting hammered by bombs, does show that the Ukrainians are actually still there. So the Russians did not do assault, despite all these reports about them taking certain actions. So moving on into the Donetsk Front. This is the Donetsk Front. And over at the Zoloteneva and Preshestivka region, there is fighting reported near Zoloteneva, according to the Ukrainians and the Russian Defense Ministry. 27, 28, 30, and 31st, there was fighting somewhat in this area here. And then there is also fighting being reported at the Preshestivka region on the 31st, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Actually, why is there so many? I think I forgot to delete the previous one. I will later clean up the data then. And moving on, over at the Volhyda region, the Russians are still continuing some offensive operations in this area, pushing towards Vodian, out of Mikhailsky and towards Volhyda. All these operations are reported by the Russian Defense Ministry about the attack towards Volhyda, and Mikhailsky, also Russian Defense Ministry, and Vodian. Only one of the report is by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So the Russian Defense Ministry are very proud about their actions in this region here, taking out Ukrainian forces around this area here. So we shall see where this goes. Nearby in the northeast, over at Novosilka, there is fighting reported in this region here as well. Geolocation of Russians attacking was done by the pro-Ukrainian side, the Dnipro showing on the 30th of October of some Russian attacks in this region here, which leads me to put all the attacks to be reported here. From the 27th to the 31st, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry are reporting most of these attacks. And the Russian Defense Ministry did report the Ukrainian counterattack on the 29th, but it looks like the Russians are the one making most of the push in this area here south of Novosilka. There are other geolocations, like the Russians are doing minesweeping over this area here, just off the Menigeri, and the Ukrainians are getting shelled in this position. So the Ukrainians are actually still holding this area here while the Russians are creeping forward. Previously, this area here is actually Ukrainian controlled. We have geolocations through videos showing that the Russian tank is firing into this forest line where the Ukrainians are holding position, and along this tree line where the Russians do the drive-by. So it looks like with this demining effort around this area means the Ukrainians have already withdrawn from this area here. So it is creeping. The Russians are doing creeping strategy. So this is actually continue to be how it's going to be fought in this area here. In the Marinka region, surprise, surprise, and no surprise, no surprise, the Russians still have not captured Marinka. It's starting to look like they deliberately do not want to capture it. It makes no sense that they can't even secure this small little area here. So it looks like they deliberately just want the Ukrainians to hold a position. They just want them to keep coming into a death trap and then get killed. It looks like it. There is no other explanation that could answer how the Russians still have not captured even this little bit of land. Despite they should have military superiority by this point. So yeah, so fighting at Marinka continues all the way to the 31st from the 27th, and reports mostly are from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. There is geolocation of Ukrainian forces just off Marinka, over at this area here. So yeah, so that's about it over for the Donetsk Front. We move into the Avdiivka Front. So at the Avdiivka Front, the Russians continue their Avdiivka offensive. This is actually the main offensive the Russians are conducting right now, and they are attacking in the area of Kreminna and Novosilka towards Stepove. They are holding the line around the volcano region. They are attacking the south, attacking at Opine towards the 9th district, at Zhevene towards Tonenke, and also at Pervomaisky. And basically, all the reports are suggesting that the Russians are the one attacking. There is no Ukrainian counterattack being reported. All the icons are red. So at the Pervomaisky, we have Ukrainian geolocation of Ukrainian forces attacked by Russian drones over at this position. So that also shows the Ukrainians are still over there. The Russians are attacking on the 27th, 29th, all the way to 31st, all reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. But I got a feeling that the Russians are actually not pushing. They are not pushing forward. It looks like they are just doing fire missions and positional warfare in this area here. There is fighting reported in the area of Zhevene, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, on the 31st, Tonenke on the 28th and the 30th. So 28th, 30th, 31st, it looks like they are all, there is just one major push, more or less in the same area. Geolocation just east of Vodian by Dnipro pro-Ukrainian source in Crimea Caprice. I believe he's neutral, showing that Russians are actually progressing from Vodian in the direction of the 9th district, and the Ukrainian mapping deep state UA has already considered this area here to the Russians in their mapping. There is fighting reported at Opine on the 28th and 29th, reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. I'm not sure if this is related to this or is a separate attack. Ryba continues. They are very very bullish talk about fighting towards the Khimik district, which is actually the 9th district over here, and the reports suggest the fighting over this area on the 29th to the 29th. I think this is actually wrong. I mapped this wrong. This is actually Karamik, not Khimik. So I'm gonna delete this. This is not correct. Yep. So on the 29th, and there is reports of fighting in the south of Avdiivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, all the way from the 27th to the 31st. And we move on to the north of Avdiivka. So this is Avdiivka city. North of Avdiivka city, some geolocation of Ukrainian forces, Russian forces getting bombarded by Ukrainian artillery, according to Dnipro OC, pro-Ukrainian source, whereas the archive, a pro-Russian source, shows that the Leopard tank got destroyed over this area here. And this is, again, I want to note about the Leopard tanks. They seem to be deployed across all the different front lines right now. So this is, in my opinion, unusual. That's my opinion. I feel that is unusual. So fighting is reported in the Svatove region from the 27th to the 28th, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So there is a certain push. I believe the Russians are primarily trying to establish the front line, doing entrenchment work, defensive work, positional warfare, strengthen this line that in the north of Avdiivka before they will start to do further operation to push out from this region here. And the fact that the front line is in this case does shows that Ryba's initial reports about fighting all the way near Badaichi seems nearly impossible, which means the Ukrainian side is actually more accurate in terms of the description of the previous fighting in this area here in the Badaichi Svatove region. It's very hard to imagine the Russians reaching this far out and not able to secure this region here, and we continue to see geolocations only to the eastern part of this railway line east of Svatove. So all this geolocation and the lack of geolocation in this area here of Russian forces does shows that the Ryba's information in terms of that breakthrough is likely to be inaccurate. The Ukrainian side is more accurate. Ukrainian Defense Ministry also reported about fighting east of Novosilka on the 29th and Karamik on the 28th and 31st. So I believe, but the front line is likely to be here, not this far. I'm just pointing towards Karamik so that, you know, the icon makes sense. So that's all from the Avdiivka front. We move on. Over at the Niu-York Front, there is reports of fighting in the Pivdeny region, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the fighting on the 31st. The Pivdeny region don't really see much fighting. Fighting in Shumi, Zelizhny, Pivdeny is is a blue moon. You don't see it. So it seldom happens, and the fact that this Torske Pivnishny region is not strategically that important. The Russians could easily just decide to just go around it, and it wouldn't make a difference cutting off the road, and this region will be entirely operationally encircled. So I don't expect real serious fighting in this region here, nor for New York. There is no reason to fight this area here. This region here is entirely useless. The Russians can just go around it, and they can continue their operations without capturing this area here. So moving on into the Bakhmut Front. This is the Bakhmut Front, Bakhmut city. At the Bakhmut Front in the south, the Russians seems to be the one on the offensive, with operations in the Klishevka region, Andriivka, and in Kodyomivka. There is a lot of geolocation of Ukrainian forces along the railway line here by Kreminna Caprice in the east of Klishevka, south of Andriivka, and another one on south of Andriivka, with the Ukrainian forces securing the railway line in this area here. However, there is a geolocation of Russian forces firmly in control of Kodyomivka. So the Russians have firm control over Kodyomivka. The Ukrainian forces have not been successful in trying to break through into this settlement. The Russians are still very successful as we continue to monitor the situation. Fighting at Kodyomivka was reported on the 27th 28th, from the 28th, 29th, and the 31st, 3 days. And at Avdiivka, the Russians are attacking every day on the 27th all the way to the 31st. Over the past 5 days, the Russians are continuing to attack. It looks maybe the Russians really want Avdiivka. They really want this front line along the railway line. And then over at Klishevka itself, Ukrainian forces only counterattack on the 29th. That's the only day that we see a Ukrainian attack in the Klishevka region. Otherwise, the fighting is all Russian all the way, every single day for the past 5 days, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. All 5 days, the Russians are on the offensive. So the Ukrainian Bakhmut offensive is as good as over, if you ask me, given the fact that the Russians are the one attacking all the time. So that's pretty much the conclusion of the Ukrainian Bakhmut offensive. Fighting towards Ivanivsky was reported on the 28th. And that's just a 1 day thing. So I don't think it's that important in that sense. Further in the north, there is certain geolocation of Ukrainian forces by Kreminna Caprice, just between Bodanivka and Berkivka. And similarly, another one on the 30th by Kreminna Caprice again. All these are Ukrainian forces getting hammered by artillery or by drones. There's no fighting around this area here, just west of Yakhidne. At the Bodanivka region, the Ukrainians seems to be on some kind of counterattack on the 26th and 27th. But yeah, nothing on the 27th, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. But it's just a 1 day thing. So no, 5 days ago, not important anymore. And that's it from the Bakhmut Front. We move into the Siversk Front. This is the Siversk city. At the Siversk Front, we only have some fighting reported at Yakovlivka on the 29th. The Russian Defense Ministry reported the Ukrainians attack on that day. But that's about it. No, we don't really see much things there. And that's it from the Siversk Front. Over at the Kreminna Front. So this Kreminna, this is the peak. This is the peak. This is the peak. So at the peak is very hungry. There is fighting reported near Orikhiv on the 28th to the 30th, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Probably Ukrainians are making some push in this area here. However, Serebransky Forestry itself, the Russians are pushing on the 29th to the 31st. Reports by the Russian Defense Ministry. And at this point, you probably might have also felt, also based on the last few SITREP, that the fighting over within the Serebransky Forestry has pretty much died down by a lot. The Ukrainians have been pushing very fiercely in this region here, but the last attack was on the 22nd and previously was on the 17th. So the push in this area here, the Ukrainians have not been managed to fight in the Serebransky Forestry for around 10 days plus already. So the Ukrainians has also pretty much ended their Serebransky Forestry assault operations, and the focus now is mainly around this area here, west of Dibrova and Toske and Yampolivka region. This area here, this is also commonly known as the Toske salient, according to the pro-Russian side. So if you do read it, you do see it. That's actually what it means. It's basically meaning this peak head north of Toske. So there is Ukrainians attack at Dibrova 28, 29, and 31st, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. As I mentioned, the Ukrainians have given up much of the Serebransky Forestry operations. They are probably just holding defensive position, and they are focusing their operations in this area here. This is the main push, main attempt by the Ukrainians. And at the Toske region, we see fighting on the 28th, and Yampolivka region, we see 29 and 31st. So it's still not that intense. It's pretty much still not big enough. There is some operations, some tries, but it's not that big. The Russians are also attacking at Toske from 27th to the 29th, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. They are doing active counter operations in the area here. Geolocation of Russian tank getting hit just northwest of Dibrova. And there's also another geolocation east of Yampolivka over this region here by Crimea Caprice, continuing to push out the border that I've drawn in the eastern part of Terni. So there is some, so most likely even this peak here is unlikely to be existing. It's most likely also under Ukrainian control, just east of Yampolivka. We move further up over at the Makiivka region. There is not much fighting over this area here. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces just south of Makiivka, getting hit by, I think, I'm not sure if it's an artillery or drone. They were attacked while they are doing rotation. There is a weird report by the Russian Defense Ministry about fighting near Petrovskoye. The only Petrovskoye I can find is Kharkivka. So Kharkivka or Kharkivka previously is also known as Petrovskoye or Petrivske. So just take this information with a pinch of salt. I'm not sure if this is a thing. And over at the Svatove Front. So at the Svatove Front, there is still some fighting around in the Nadia region. The Ukrainians were reported to have attacked Serhievka on the 27th, and from the 25th to the 26th, Russian defense, 25 and 29 actually. This should be a comma. So the Russian Defense Ministry reported fighting. So in this area here, so 25, 27th, and 29. So one attack every other day by the Ukrainians, while the Russians did counterattack on the 31st. So it is probably most likely just small clashes, skirmishes along the front line. I don't think these are assault operations, or these are not serious big offensive operations. And that's it from the Svatove Front. The entire area here just went pretty quiet. And we move into the Kupyansk Front. This is the Kupyansk Front. And at the Kupyansk Front, the Russians seems to be continuing their pincer in this area here in the Sinkivka and the Ivanivka region. Russian attacking at Ivanivka was reported 28, 29, and 31st, whereas at Sinkivka was reported 28, 31st, and 30th and 31st. Information are all from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Deep State UA only reports about the fighting at Liman Pershi. So maybe the Sinkivka reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry actually refers to south of Liman Pershi. Maybe the Russians are pushing in this direction. But geolocation on the 30th show T80 by the Russians attacking Sinkivka. So my indication of the icon might actually still be accurate. The Ukrainians are counter-attacking though. Or rather they are actually on the offensive. The Russian Defense Ministry reports all 5 days, 27 to the 31st, that the Ukrainians are attacking in this area here. So that's actually interesting. That the Ukrainians are actually pushing much harder. And there is also geolocation just off Peshetrevneve of a Russian convoy, Russian armored column pushing out over this region here, and then they got spotted and bombarded by the Ukrainians, and causing destroyed Russian vehicles. And over at the Timkovka region, so this is Timkovka. In the Timkovka region, there is geolocation of Leopard tank getting destroyed over at this position here just off Timkovka. This is the one that I was mentioning earlier, that even Leopard tanks are being seen in the Kupyansk Front. So this is one of the surprise to me. And there is also geolocation of another tank that was destroyed. Destruction of a tank of the Ukrainian armed forces by a anti-tank weapons of the Ukrainian armed forces. The writing is a bit weird. But anyway, it's a Ukrainian position. So this is a Ukrainian tank. And the Ukrainians are also attacking in the area of Tinkovka on the 27th and the 30th, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And the Russian offensive over Ivanivka is 28, and 29, and 31st. And but we do not have much over here except a geolocation of Ukrainian infantry running from shelling as they hold position along this forest line as he run back to civilization. Previously, the front line was that there was a suspicion that the Russians actually have Ivanivka, but with this geolocation, it shows that the front line is actually over here on the eastern part of Ivanivka. So this also further confirms that Ukrainian mapping seems to be more accurate than the Russian mapping tends to be. So this is important. So if you are pro-Russian, do not dismiss pro-Ukrainian claims. Pro-Ukrainian claims sometimes can be very, very accurate, especially comes to mapping. But you also need to know which source to follow. I would again highly recommend Deep State UA. So Deep State UA, despite they do work with the Ukrainian government, the mapping they do is very, very accurate. So do give them more credits for that in that case. So anyway, this is the SITREP or summary for the day of 611 to 615 for the 27th to 31st of October. Do press the like button, subscribe. Because this is a multi-day report, so I think this is not going to be under the paywall. So that more can be informed of what is happening over the past 5 days. Thank you for watching. I see you in the next update.